about to listen to the Dr. Dahlia Show. Sassy, stimulating medical talk radio. Any medical advice Dr. Dahlia Wax gives on her show should not be substituted for an actual visit to your medical provider. And now, here's Dr. Dahlia.
All right, welcome back to the Dr. Dahlia Show, 1-877-DOC-DALI, 1-877-DOC-DALI. So as a physician, when I am asked to determine if somebody is physically fit or if somebody is mentally fit, that's a tall order. And that is a very rigorous process and history and physical and investigation into the person's abilities, because claiming that somebody is physically unfit or medically unfit commits them, for life. It affects their work, affects their relationships, affects their mentation. And so before a doctor says, you know what, you're physically unfit or you're mentally unfit. In fact, you don't really hear doctors use that term anymore. They may say you have a disability. You may have challenges as it pertains to a certain physical abilities or mental capabilities, but we just won't say you're unfit. I mean, and unless, of course, we're in a realm where somebody needs a 72-hour hold because of suicide watch, or we feel that they are a danger to themselves or others. So when you see these polls saying the majority of Americans think Trump is unfit physically and mentally, I look at that as that could be very, very dangerous for the Democrats and Republicans and for America in future. You're going to have to be very, very careful with the verbiage. And so when you look at these polls, the latest one is the Washington Post ABC News Ipsos poll. It found that 59% of U.S. respondents indicated that Trump does not have the mental sharpness it takes to lead the country. 40% of respondents said the president is mentally equipped for the leadership. So a 59 to 44, and then 1% said they skipped the question. 55% of surveyed U.S. adults said Trump is not in good enough physical health to serve as president, while 44% disagreed. So I'd like to know what medical conditions they're concerned about. Is it his cholesterol? Is it his weight? Is it his peripheral vascular disease? Other polls, I believe a YouGov survey, it said 63% of Americans believe Trump's health and age are affecting his ability to perform his job. 59% believe he is experiencing a physical decline. And then I think there's another Navigator research survey, say 58% of Americans believe Trump is unfit to serve as president, again, including 62% of independents. All right, so you get all these polls that are saying he is unfit, he is unfit. Now, I love strategy. I love Democratic strategy, Republican strategy, so I love giving my advice to all sides. Right? But my priorities are patients and Americans. And you start to throw around that somebody is too old or they aren't capable because they're old. Now, here comes ageism. And I thought we were trying to avoid that. I thought we didn't want to discriminate based on age. I mean, look at Nancy Pelosi. She's still working. She's still a firecracker. Trump appears to be working more than a lot of, Gen X's, millennials, and Gen Z's who are not currently working. I mean, he's, so you got to be really, really careful with what and you also want to be very careful following the Biden presidency. If you're going to compare Trump's pressers where he has no notes, he remembers who does what show, which outlet they're from, compared to Biden, who was like, I'm not allowed to speak to you, or I'm going to get yelled at if it's like night and day. You want to be really, really careful. People in glass houses shouldn't throw stones. But I believe that many people feel, well, Biden is never going to happen again. So they're going to have a Gavin Newsom or a Kamala Harris. So that won't be an issue. But you need to be very, very careful about what the criticism is. If you think Trump's tweets are ridiculous and inflammatory and all that, then you attack it that way. But to say he's physically and mentally unfit, that gets tricky. I understand we have, ways within the Constitution, if somebody, let's say, is incapacitated or intubated, or who takes over? Well, then the vice president takes over, and then the Speaker of the House, or I mean, we do have a succession. But if you say President Trump is physically unfit, well, then how did FDR be able to be president with his paralysis? Originally postulated as polio, now they think he might have had another sort of neurological issue that caused him to have paralysis. It's fascinating when you look. I'll talk about that a little bit later in the show if I can, if we have time. But FDR was in a wheelchair. So you're saying if somebody's in a wheelchair, they're not physically fit? I mean, I thought we're not discriminating against disability. Somebody having peripheral vascular disease, somebody being overweight. I thought we were not going to be shunning people for weight. So if you're going to say that he is not physically capable, because he's always asleep or he's never awake during meetings, and he doesn't, we don't see him in the public eye because he's always having medical procedures. You're going to have to back that up. And then in terms of the mentally unfit, that can be kind of scary when you start to claim that, because we saw with that doctor in Maine who was accused of being mentally unfit when she on Twitter asked, why isn't the CDC looking at natural immunity as it pertains to COVID? Now, that's a question. So we doctors, when you're in training, all right, I mean, you get reamed if you don't, understand what the body's natural defenses are and how the body helps fight infection. And talking about natural immunity is a very common topic. And so for her to bring that up was not a sign of mental illness, yet her license got suspended and she was forced to have psychiatric counseling. So when I bring up, how you might think you're on the side that's not oppressed and you're safe because people are only going to go after the other side, that's not the case. It'll always wrap and turn right back around and then go after you. If you put in laws saying that, somebody making a tweet is a sign of mental illness, okay, now you're going to have, every politician on all sides up for psychiatric evaluations. We have got to have a standard of how we decide if somebody is mentally or physically fit. And just saying that and saying it like, it's like the boy who cried wolf, it's going to not mean much later. 1-877-Doc-Dolly, don't go away. Hi, guys. Dr. Dahlia here. Addictions can sneak up on us and come in many forms. Whether it's drugs, alcohol, sex, video games, porn, or something less obvious such as food, internet, or shopping, addiction can seem innocent at first and then evolve into an insurmountable evil. In our book, Addiction Basics, Caitlin Kalikas and I dive into the common addictions and provide tips for identifying and preventing these before they sneak in and take over our lives. Addiction Basics can be found on Amazon or my website, drdahlia.com. Check it out.
Increase fuel economy up to 7.9% with Hot Shot's Secret Gasoline Extreme, the solution to maximize your engine's performance and fuel economy. Whether you're driving a sports car or a daily commuter, Gasoline Extreme is specially formulated with PEA to deep clean. Don't settle for an average driving experience. Upgrade to Hot Shot's Secret Gasoline Extreme and go further on each tank. Order now on Amazon or HotShotSecret.com. Hot Shot Secret, powered by science.
Looking for a gift that can actually help secure someone's future? It's Mark Falter's new book, Common Sense Income Strategies. It makes the perfect gift for that special someone in your life. Mark has helped thousands of hardworking Americans secure their financial future by using time-tested strategies that continue to create wealth, whether the market is up or down. Strategies that will make perfect sense once you take the time to read this powerful book. Common Sense Income Strategies brings to you what Mark has been teaching in person and talking about on the radio for decades. You've worked too long and too hard not to see the fruits of your labor. To learn how to receive your free copy, call 866-764-2635. That's 866-764-2635. Secure your future with Common Sense Income Strategies by Mark Falter. Again, to learn how to receive your free copy, call 866-764-2635. That's 866-764-2635.
welcome back, everybody, to the Dr. Dahlia Show. 1-877-Dr. Dahlia, 1-877-DOC-DALI. So everybody is, getting their margarita mixes and finding the margarita glasses or making reservations at Mexican restaurants because it's Cinco de Mayo, which kind of confuses me because Cinco de Mayo is not Mexican Independence Day. That's in September. Cinco de Mayo marks the Battle of Puebla, a very important battle. It was fought in Puebla, Mexico on May 5th, 1862, where the underdogs were these poorly equipped Mexican soldiers that we believe, were paling in comparison to the number of the French army. The French army was sent by Napoleon III. They had at least 6,000, and they were there to establish a French presence in Mexico. Well, at the Battle of Puebla, the Mexicans won. So the holiday celebrates this single victory. France was then unable to control much of the country at that time. And so now we celebrate Cinco de Mayo. But how do we celebrate it? Well, it's now it's kind of changed. It used to just be the Battle of Puebla. And then I believe it was the 1960s, where, according to History.com, the Chicano movement embraced Cinco de Mayo in its broader effort to highlight Mexican-American identity in society. So they say Cinco de Mayo comes from a precise historical moment, but in the United States, it also reflects the experience of Mexican-American communities over time. It has been a way to make culture visible, to gather publicly, and to carry history across generations. Now, it's not recognized as a federal holiday in Mexico or the United States. In fact, you'll see these memes saying the United States is about to celebrate Cinco de Mayo when in Mexico it's just the 5th of May. In the United States, we seem to celebrate it more. However, in Puebla, Mexico, it's huge. So there's going to be a lot of celebrations. But in terms of across the nation, I believe in America, we celebrate it more than they do in Jalisco or other places in Mexico. And so, one thing, though, that ends up coming from this is, for me, I really love cultures. And I love when you see people embrace their culture. So, the Irish and St. Patrick's Day. I think, people who are non-Irish take it to ridiculous levels and extremes. But, for people to, celebrate and be exposed to some Irish culture is really, really cool. Yeah. The Puerto Rican parades, Greek, the Greek market and the Greek festival, and I love cultures. And, being that America is a melting pot and we assimilate to be American, I still love the idea that you have the Irish section, the Italian section, the Jewish section, in New York, and you get that feel, the neighborhood. It's not going to be Little Italy. It's not going to be Israel, but you are going to get to be immersed in that culture. And I don't ever want to see cultures go away. AI and Google Translate can now break down barriers between people talking to each other, et cetera. But to go into a country where it's more of their authentic, culture and identity is so cool. And I don't want to lose that. And I don't want to see Germany just lined with McDonald's and Burger Kings, or Zimbabwe, now, so the commercialization, and we're going to be talking about tourism, how tourism is starting to ruin a lot of these locals are pretty upset because a lot of these beautiful places that tourists are going to, they're really starting to, affect the local flavor of it. When people say, well, we shouldn't be celebrating Cinco de Mayo because we're insulting Mexicans, I'm not of Mexican heritage. We have Latinos in the family from a variety of Latin America countries. But it's, to me, how I look at it is if you're honoring them. I mean, if you're going to be doing stereotypes and incorrectly cultural appropriating and things like that, no. But if you want to, be immersed in some of the culture, I think it's very flattering as long as you don't do it incorrectly. So there's another meme, which you've seen, where a man on Cinco de Mayo is sleeping with a sombrero on his face, and he's naked, and there's a sombrero over his weenie. And I think it says like Happy Cinco de Mayo. Or you'll see a Mayo, a jar of mayonnaise, and it's sitting there in the sink, and they say Cinco de Mayo. Okay, come on, people, really, come on. And you know that's not really helping the situation out. Right? But knowing what I think makes the people of Mexico concerned and critical of what the U.S. does is misinterpreting what Cinco de Mayo is. The Battle of Puebla was a huge historical watershed moment. And so when people say, yay, happy Mexico Independence Day, Mexico Independence Day is September 16th. And so Mexicans may be critical that we're just completely screwing this up and getting it wrong. Or making these stupid memes. But if you're understanding exactly what it is, and you're not getting drunk on margaritas and, running around in sombreros and, and I don't know, bragging about how many tacos you got on Taco Tuesday. And we don't want to minimize somebody's culture, to something like I think there was a representative who was talking about how they like Jews and they like matzo ball soup. Is that what a Jew is? A chef that makes matzo ball soup. I mean, there's a little bit more to us. Okay, I mean, come on, man. So just if you are going to celebrate, then I would definitely consider just ensuring that you know what exactly you're doing. 1-877 Dolly 1-877 DOCDALI. So, this lively probably the story I really hate covering because I don't give a damn about is this Blake Lively, Justin Baldoni, It Ends With Us suit. And first of all, the movie stinks. I watched It Ends With Us. It was not a good movie. I understand what they were trying to do. They were trying to talk about domestic assault and all, but it could have been done so much better. And it wasn't that good a movie. But somehow it got to be spoken about and it got themselves in the news because there was this big legal battle between Blake Lively and Justin Baldoni. Blake Lively accused of Baldoni being sexually being improper during intimate scenes and harassing, and Baldoni was they tried to do this big smear campaign, her and her husband Ryan Reynolds. And so finally, after how many years of this stupid case, they settled, and there's no money exchange. They settled and they're not going to the courts. And now people are talking about a sequel. Like, come on, you see how manipulative this is? This is, but the one thing though, the reason why this kept coming out is in December 2024, Blake Lively alleged in her sexual harassment complaint that Baldoni repeatedly harassed her on the set, crossed boundaries during intimate scenes in the film. Meanwhile, Baldoni would show videos of her grabbing him, her coming up to him, her emails and texts to him. And so what came out of this was, again, another discussion of, are some people crying rape when they're not? Which, unfortunately, the first person who did that ruined it for all of us who have ever been assaulted. Because now when we're assaulted, people question, were you really, or are you making it up? And so you would think that we would be in a perfect world where nobody would lie about something like that. But then you have this case where you see videos of her approaching him. Yeah. And if he was assaulting her, you would think that she would leave or she wouldn't get closer to him so that she could be victimized again. It's confusing. And so then people start to think, was she being very truthful? And when we have men who are predators, but you also have innocent men who are being accused when they didn't do anything, it causes a lot of chaos in work settings. And I can't stand it when somebody lies to take advantage of a situation, putting somebody innocent at risk. And I'm not saying Blake Lively did that, but apparently the judge had dismissed a lot of her claims. And if that's what's going to happen, where somebody will go there if they have a disagreement with a male producer or a male coworker, that's dangerous. I mean, you know how hard it's been for women to finally work with men and be able to work in same settings. We fought long and hard to be able to work with men, but men aren't going to want to work with us if they think we're going to accuse them incorrectly. So seeing that this finally, hopefully, is done, good, because I really don't want to see this in the news anymore. But it also shows the importance of documenting everything. Save all your texts, save all your emails, because it could come back at court. 1-877-DOC-DOLLY.
Hey guys, it's Clyde. You know, we've had a lot of requests for Ground Zero merchandise, so we put together an online store with a big variety of high-quality items. I'm really excited to let you know about these things. We have a lot to offer you and your loved ones. In addition to our regular apparel, such as t-shirts, beanies, hoodies, and hats, we've expanded our product line with posters, flags, aprons, mugs, and a whole lot more. We also have Ground Zero collectibles, along with a limited edition of items like a Clyde Lewis canvas portrait, a Ground Zero embroidered jacket that will certainly make for great gifts and for interesting conversations with family and friends. And we now offer publications such as Ron Patton's book about mind control, MK Zine, and back copies of the official magazine of Ground Zero while it was in print. Paranoia, the Conspiracy Reader, also coming in 2023, are updated and revised books that I've written. There's a secure and easy-to-use shopping cart for your purchases. So shop today at our official store by going to groundzeromerch.com. Again, that's groundzeromerch.com.
We are back to the Dr. Dolly Show. Thank you all for tuning in. 1-877-DOC-DOLLY, 1-877-DOC-DALI. Big thanks to Talk Media Network for making the show happen. Big thanks to Daniel, our producer. Big thanks to you all for tuning in. We really do appreciate it. Don't forget to follow us on Twitter or X at Dr. Dahlia, Facebook, The Dr. Dahlia Show, and on YouTube, click like and subscribe. So are tourists ruining tourism? Now, the average tourist hotspot will say, yeah. And kind of is little confusing and ironic, because you need tourists to make your tourism industry. But apparently we have too many tourists. This is something that I've been noticing over the years, where let's say, for example, I was in Paris twice. I've been in Paris twice. How many times have I seen the Louvre? 0. There's too many people there. You have to now get tickets, and if you didn't get tickets months in advance, you don't get to go. Twice I've wanted to see the Louvre. Can't do it. Nope. There's too many tourists. I want to see Anne Frank's house in Amsterdam. Can't do it. Nope. Too many tourists. Small apartment. You have to book months in advance. Crowds everywhere. When you go on a trip and you're planning on doing things, the idea of, I'm going to go see this, or I'm going to hike here. No. Even in Hawaii is changing. If you think you're going to be able to just, hike up the Nepali coast or do whatever on your own, no, you got to now book reservations. They limit it, because the number of tourists can really not only ruin the experience, but also ruin the trails and hurt the beautiful landscape. And so I read this article that's, I've never been to the Amalfi Coast in Italy, but that's where I want to go, where you see the villages and the homes up against the mountains. I just, Portofino, I've always been dying to go there. And apparently one of the best ways to go there is by cruise. I guess you could be inland and then drive down to get there, but to see that beautiful imagery, you want to be coming from the water. Or you might have to then charter a boat or something like that. So we haven't done that because that's kind of a lot of money, and we got to save up for something like that. But apparently the village, there's people who live there, and they're not liking that they can't even go outside because it's bumper to bumper tourists. Whenever you go, it's fascinating. When you go to Europe, you have buildings, hundreds upon hundreds, centuries old. you have architecture, you have very small, you're going to have small roads, small buildings. These are buildings that withstood the test of time. And you can actually see how things were. You're walking on some of the same roads that Roman soldiers walked on. But it was never designed for thousands upon thousands of people per day to trample on. And many of these places are still homes for the locals. It's not just all these buildings are empty buildings just for show. This is where people live. And tourists are like, oh man, well, they're making money off of us. And if you had people always in front of your house, how would you like that? I want to be able to leave my house. Let's say I'm in my pajamas, man. I'm just trying to bring in the garbage can. I want some privacy. I don't want to be around tourists who are taking pictures of my house. I have to keep the windows closed. That kind of, who wants that? So south of Naples, you got the Italy Amalfi Coast, and they say that these locations are more of a nightmare. Postiano is all these tight little streets. They say everybody walking together. Half the people are going up, half are going down. It's complete chaos. Everyone is touching shoulder to shoulder. Now, that was what an American tourist said about Positano last summer. You could just imagine what the locals are feeling. And if you look at the video footage, all you see is bump. It's almost like Disneyland. And Disneyland is now a very difficult experience because it's just lines and lines. And so residents, they say, have revolted. They think the crowds are a sign of impending doom as summer season. We aren't even in summer season. And so local resident Antonio Antianesi said for the mayors and administrators of the Amalfi Coast, they like this mess. Otherwise, they would have already issued orders to civilize this mass tourism. They say it's been going on like this for years, and the situation is getting worse every year. So there's a hotel owner, former Mayor Salvatore Gagliano. He owns the five-star hotel, the Grand Hotel Tritone in Praiano. And he said the swell of tourists has not only blocked pedestrian passageways this past weekend, but also the winding roads that hug the region's coastline. He said these are seen straight out of a third world. The roads are narrow. When they are blocked, there is total confusion. So you wonder, about like what if ambulance medics need to get where they need to go? What if first responders, fire department? How do you do that when a city that was never supposed to be designed for mass tourism was just supposed to be a comfortable village that is now turned into a tourism mecca? What do? They say there's also these day tripper people. The locals call them Mordi Fuji or the eat and run tourists. And they say they are destroying the luxurious aspirational image of the Amalfi Coast. So guests at his hotel will spend $2,200 a night. But you have a lot of people that will, it's cheaper to do a cruise. If they could go, if they could do a cruise, then they are not necessarily having to spend the money on the fancy hotels. And so they call them the cheaper tourists, the eat and run, where they come, they say they were there, they took the pictures, and then they leave. And it's a cheaper way to enjoy the coast. But unfortunately, it's bringing thousands of more people. So what's going to end up happening is the locals are going to revolt, and I don't blame them. And like we see in Hawaii, like we see in a lot of places where they say, you can't touch us. Can't touch us. You can't go there. If so, we are only going to limit X number of individuals, and you have to make reservations. And so all these places that you were able to once, have the ability to go to, is going to be a lot more difficult to go to. And the tourists are ruining tourism. We have, and why is that? It was interesting because when I was younger, going to Europe was, something that only rich people did. Or I would have to figure out how to hitch a ride and get there so I could backpack through Europe with my friends. It's doable, but I was making $4 an hour at Jack in the Box. I mean, it was going to be really, really difficult to try to put some money together to be able to take a trip to get to Europe. And so I never thought it could happen. Well, now with, advances and in more airlines and more options and credit card points. Now, once you get, it's a lot easier. Plus, people now have that YOLO, that you only live once. Like, I want to enjoy. I don't want to just dream about one day going to Paris. We spoke about Paris depression and Italy depression with the Olympics that we just had with the Summer and Winter Olympics, where people are looking at that going, oh my gosh, I'll never get to do that. And I'm like, actually, you can. If you want to get to Paris, fly to England. It's cheaper. And then take the tube to drop you off at Paris. I mean, there's ways to do it. But you aren't the only one thinking that way. Going, I want to enjoy life. I want to see a city. I'm going to see it. And I do urge you guys, if you want to see something, go see it. If you want to go to Australia, you want to see the Great Barrier Reef. I mean, life is too short. Our world is amazing. It's gorgeous. And even though America has some of the most beautiful wonders of the world, you want to go and see the Philippines. Gorgeous. Puerto Rico. I still haven't been to the Philippines or Puerto Rico. That's on my wish list. I want to also go to Scotland. I want to go back to England and then go up to Scotland. But now tourism and the attitudes towards tourism is changing. And I like it. I think it's changing for the better because I want people to enjoy things. But on the other end, our population has grown and the amount of people now taking these types of trips is exponentially growing to the point where, you think you're going to go see the Roman Colosseum, and be able to walk right up? No. I was very fortunate to see the Roman Colosseum, but somebody said buy extra price tickets. So for the quote unquote front of the line pass. And I'm like, well, that's not cool. How long a line is it? And they said you could wait 8 hours to get in. So you could pay extra now, but everybody's doing it. So you're still waiting, where you hire a guide and then the guide takes you through and you go faster. It's really changing when you have people and they're in the crowds, it's a different experience. So see things before the locals shut them down. 1-877 Dr. Dolly, don't go away. Dr. Dahlia here. Are you tired, burned out, gaining weight, succumbing to the daily pressures of life? Well, how's your dopamine doing? How you feel right now, how you'll feel an hour from now, and how you'll feel next week is completely reliant on your dopamine. Our daily motivation and willingness to push through challenges depends on the intricate chemical process dopamine provides. Christian Kalikas and I created Deploying Dopamine, a book that tells you what dopamine is, when it dysfunctions, and how to successfully deploy it when needed. Find Deploying Dopamine on Amazon today. Check it out.
At Hot Shot Secret, we share the science behind common diesel problems. For example,
Diesel fuel cetane levels.
the cetane rating in diesel fuel is 42 to 45. Most diesel engines operate more efficiently with a cetane rating of 48 to 50. One treatment of Hot Shot Secret Diesel Extreme will raise your cetane 7 points, increase fuel economy, and improve cold starts.
Hot Shot Secret Diesel Extreme is available nationwide at truck stops, fine farm and auto stores, and online at hotshotsecret.com. Hot Shot Secret, powered by science.
Hey, America. How tired are you of mainstream corporate media's biased narratives and manipulated news? Their dishonesty and attempts to influence this generation have been exposed, put on display for anyone who's even half paying attention. But the New American Magazine has been an honest source of news and commentary for over 50 years. This is your opportunity to receive the stalwart of principled journalism at a deep discount. Picture a beautifully published magazine arriving at your doorstep twice a month, packed with insightful stories written with integrity. It's also available digitally on the New American's mobile app. Get up to speed with intelligent coverage from a freedom perspective. Right now, for a limited time, the New American is available to radio listeners at a 25% discount on a new subscription. Visit thenewamerican.com/radio25 and receive 25% off. Subscribe today at thenewamerican.com/radio25.
All right, we are back on the Dr. Dahlia Show. Thank you all for tuning in. 1-877 Dr. Dolly, 1-877-DOCDALI. So all eyes are on this cruise ship that was traveling from Argentina to Cape Verde, where a hantavirus broke out. And the MV, I just had the name of it, the Hondias, I apologize. I want to pronounce it correctly. The MV Hondias, right? Hondias? Yeah, is the cruise ship. I believe it's on its way to the Canary Islands. However, We have 3 people who have died, and now there's a British cruise ship passenger in intensive care. This is worrying a lot of the people in the cruise ship and a lot of the passengers because they are not allowed to disembark. They have to remain on the cruise ship. And as I said yesterday, there is a very small possibility of person-to-person contact and transmission. Now, usually hantavirus you get from being exposed to rat droppings, urine, feces. So we don't usually see somebody give it to somebody else. But this Dutch couple who died, were they both exposed in similar manners, or did one give it to the other? The Dutch couple was a man who was 70 and a woman who was 69. They have known to have died. The man died on arrival of the island of St. Helena, a British territory in South Atlantic. And the woman also became ill on board. She was evacuated to South Africa, and she died in a Johannesburg hospital. The third person who has died is also Dutch. Their body remains on board. Now we have a British national in the hospital. He's in South Africa. He's a 69-year-old UK national, according to BBC. He's in intensive care. As I said yesterday, with the hantavirus, we don't have a cure or a vaccine. What we do is we do supportive measures. Well, one is we try to prevent you from getting hantavirus by avoiding rat droppings and urine and feces. And then, if we do believe that there's a possible strain that could cause person-to-person transmission, we have you isolated. But because it could cause respiratory disease, respiratory illness, we have to do supportive measures to make sure you're breathing. And, many people with hantavirus can do fine, but unfortunately, 4 out of 10 can die. That's a high mortality rate. So a spokesperson for the South African Department of Health says he became ill while the ship was traveling from St. Helena to Ascension Island. Then he was transferred from a hospital to Ascension to a South African private health facility in Sandton for medical attention. We also have 2 sick crew on board. Cruise operator Oceanwide Expeditions has confirmed 2 crew members on board are sick and are requiring medical care. The ship is currently off the coast of Cape Verde, appears to have been there now for at least 24 hours, but the operator says authorities there have not given authorization for them to disembark. Now we're being told they're going to be going to the Canary Islands. So even though currently they're right off the port of Praia, Cape Verde, an archipelago in the Atlantic west of Africa. And the cruise is run by Oceanwide Expeditions. And according to an itinerary on its website, it had departed Ushuaia, I hope I'm pronouncing that right, in Argentina on March 20, and was supposed to complete its journey yesterday in Cape Verde. Now, there are 80 cabins. It's not the biggest ship. The ship is 107.6 meters long, breadth of 17.6 meters. There's 80 cabins, 170 passengers, 57 crew, 13 guides, and 1 doctor. So it's not like one of these big Carnival cruises or Royal Caribbean cruises where you have thousands of people there. So it is, even though it is a smaller ship, though it's not as highly populated as you would think. However, having 170 passengers, 57 crew, 13 guides, you still have about 250 people. That's a lot. According to the South African Department of Health, the ship had 150 tourists. Even though it can hold up to 170 passengers, there was only 150 tourists at the time. So how did they get it? Were there rats or mice on the ship? What happened? So the most common vector is obtaining the virus from feces, urine, or saliva, if there's an infected rat or mouse nearby. I never used to understand while watching Tom and Jerry as a kid why the mom, because my mom was never a screamer and scared of things. I only saw my mom run once when there was a snake, and I was blown away because, I usually, my mom would only run to whoop my butt. So I've only seen her run once. It was a Sidewinder. So the Sidewinder would have hurt her. It was a Sidewinder. Me and my brother thought it was cool. I didn't think she was going to get hurt. But I would be watching Tom and Jerry, and you'd see these women go, "Eek, oh, a mouse!" And then they would jump on a chair and freak out. I'm like, "Mom, it's a Jerry. It's a little Tom and Jerry. Why are these women freaking out?" My mom's like, "Well, because they carry very bad diseases." And I was like, "But they're so cute. I've held mice, and no, don't touch them." Right? Also, the bubonic plague. There's, mice have been known and rats to carry disease. Which is why I think it's great to have cats, although my cats do nothing to attack the mice. The dogs do more. Now, if the mice are the typical vector, we would assume that was possibly the cause. But according to Dr. Zaid Fadul, a former Air Force flight surgeon, said the World Health Organization insisted that no rodents have been found on the boat. Now, you also wonder, would somebody say? I mean, I'm assuming they're going to be very ethical about it, but let's say they did find, a rat or mouse. I mean, would they just throw it overboard and say none here? But we need to know, and I'm hoping everybody is going to be very, very open and honest about this, because if there were no rats or rat droppings and the food wasn't contaminated, then that could suggest it might be another strain. There's the Andes virus, which is one subtype in Argentina where it can be transmitted person to person. If that's the case, you got a lot of people who are sitting ducks right now because they can't get off the ship. And person-to-person transmission, the Andes strain, also has a mortality rate of 40%. You have an 80 cabin, 150 passengers plus crew. I'd say maybe 230 people. That's frightening. The World Health Organization confirmed Tuesday that is the working theory and that many people may have been infected before boarding the ship. They say, we do believe that there may be some human-to-human transmission that is happening among the real close contacts. The Dutch cruise liner had departed from Ushuaia, Argentina on March 20. It was supposed to be a weeks-long Atlantic Odyssey voyage. And then while the ship was, starting to go to its final destination, 3 passengers died. Authorities are working to evacuate 2 additional sick passengers as well. And again, this is, if you remember the debacle that happened with the cruise ship off of Japan during COVID. You want to save the people's lives. So you think if there's somebody sick, get them off the ship or get the healthy people off the ship and then treat the sick people and then fumigate, clean, sterilize the ship and then let new passengers later come on. I mean, but instead the approach is keep everybody on the ship. So you had healthy people coming down with COVID when this was late 2019, 2000. And they were trapped. Nobody would let them get off the ship. And they're like, but there's an infectious disease that's spreading. What are we supposed to do? So they tried to stay in their rooms, but they were worried about ventilation, etc. And so now you have the same case where passengers are pleading, can we get off the ship before we get sick? Now, and if these other countries don't want the strains coming to them, yeah, and probably because they don't necessarily have, I think there's an ethical duty. And I believe there is a certain duty if they're in your waters, but if it's a ship's in international waters, I believe that many countries are still allowed to say, not here, go somewhere else. And so unfortunately, these people can't leave the ship. And in fact, they have to be far, far away from the coast because they don't want somebody jumping off the ship and trying to swim to the coast. That's frightening. And I got to tell you, I love cruising. It's to me a much less expensive way to travel and very cool and very fun. But somebody gets sick, you're a sitting duck. So I hope they could control this, and I hope the people who want to get off the ship that are healthy and won't spread it can get off the ship. And I hope the unhealthy people could get the treatment they need. 1-877-DOC-DOLLY.
Looking for an easy read that can actually help secure someone's future? Pick up a copy of Mark Falter's book, Common Sense Income Strategies. For the past 30-plus years, Mark has helped thousands of hardworking Americans secure their financial future by using strategies that continue to create wealth, whether the market is up or down. Strategies that will make perfect sense once you take the time to read this powerful book. Common Sense Income Strategies brings to you what Mark has been teaching in person and talking about on the radio for decades. It's not rocket science, it's a pretty easy read. You've worked too long and too hard not to see the fruits of your labor. Common Sense Income Strategies is available now on Amazon or by calling 866-764-2635. That's 866-764-2635. Common Sense Income Strategies by financial fitness show host Mark Falter. Secure your financial future today.